So thanks for sitting down for an interview. First question, what's your name and what are you currently working on?
Sure. My name's Kevin Robinson. I work at Twitter and I work on Answers, which is a mobile analytics product.
So how long have you been working with React?
We've been using React in production for about 9 months, and I sort of have been experimenting and interested in it a little bit before that as well.
What was your talk on today?
My talk was on different ways that we can sort of work towards what Christopher called out in his keynote as one of the pillars of where React and the community is going. And that's managing, interacting with the server, managing data, and all those kind of problems. And so I talked sort of basically 2 parts. One, sort of what work have we done in Answers to try to solve that and provide a really awesome real-time experience to users. And then second is a little bit more forward-looking about how we can apply functional programming ideas from backend systems to UI systems.
So a lot of people in working with React have had a lot of interesting insights into their profession and how they go about building software. Has anything stand out in the last year or so of working with React that has really influenced how you think about software?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's taken all these really awesome ideas from functional programming and showed how that we can use them to sort of do real work, and that they're actually more efficient, that they're actually more practical, and they're actually simpler, and sort of taken some of that those ideas that I sort of saw as promises, things that maybe one day I'll understand, and sort of made them real and really impacted the way that I go about thinking about UIs. I think the sort of core idea at React about setting a state and then re-rendering is just so simple and clear, and it's awesome. And then the sort of framework mechanics to make that reality, that's real engineering work that needs to get done. But the sort of trade-off is that when we're doing our work day to day and making new things, that we can sort of have a simpler thing that's easier to reason about.
Overall, Twitter is a massive application, a huge scale, and a lot of companies are building, similar applications and trying to scale up. Is there anything in React that sort of affects the way Twitter scales or goes about building out, their application?
Yeah, sure. So I'll speak directly about Answers, which is the team that I work on, and basically React has a really great component model, and so that helps you sort of compose pieces of the UI in a way that other approaches maybe aren't as strong at. That's the thing that's I've been drawn to, at least. And so, when you have a really simple model about how to think about pieces of the UI, that there's components, that they have state, that can flow them down, and that when any of that changes, we re-render in diff. It makes it easier to sort of think about what's happening because there's just less moving parts. And so especially when you have more and more people on a team and you have people contributing and coming from other parts of the tech stack that they don't necessarily have this deep JavaScript experience, they can use their sort of good engineering skills to just get things done and make things really, really fast.
At one conference, I heard someone from Twitter talking about server-side rendering to improve the client-side experience. How does React sort of fit into that, and are you guys doing sort of isomorphic type JavaScript?
Sure. Yeah, I love that talk by Dan Webb from a little while ago at JSConf about, I think it was talking about sort of being aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you're trying to optimize for performance, that kind of can't be ungrounded from what the user experience is. So I think that team did some really awesome work to sort of talk about what do we want to achieve. They sort of decided we want to optimize for time to first tweet, and server rendering can be really impactful there. I think in terms of doing server rendering, that's not a team that I'm directly involved with, so I'm not as aware of sort of what they're doing now. I know they're doing really awesome stuff, and some of those pieces of those teams are using React as well. For the products that I work on as part of Fabric and developer tools, we basically have a logged-in experience where we're creating a product that developers are using sort of day in, day out, doing their workflow. And so that isn't as much of a concern. Most things can be on the client side. When we've done work for doing server rendering, we've looked at React, but it's not a thing that I sort of know a lot about. And just to clarify too, there was a tweet that said my talk was sort of about isomorphic flux. And so it's sort of more about how we have data on the server and how we interact with that versus strictly server rendering. And maybe I should say universal JavaScript if that's the cool term now too. So
universal instead of isomorphic?
I think that's what Michael Jackson is trying to promote.
All right. So what do you think, what do you see in the future of JavaScript and React in the next couple of years?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think Chris really like hit the nail on the head talking about data as being a core thing that the React community can advance. I think people's excitement about things like Relay and GraphQL is evidence of that. And I think React has solved the view layer of UI programming so well that that's the sort of next big space for innovation. So I think there's lots of really exciting things happening there, things that are basically grounded in these more functional programming approaches, like recording data, interpreting that data differently, doing those kind of things. I think there's also really interesting work coming out of the ClojureScript community. And then sort of bigger picture, I think there's really interesting ideas coming from Cognitech with Datomic and how we can sort of make a more fundamentally sound information model that's at its core immutable and based on all those good properties. And then we sort of have to figure out how to do the work to make that reality. But if we can do it, then we can sort of program with these simpler ideas and sort of make it easier for less experienced engineers to make really, really impactful things even more quickly.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for the interview.